Hi, my name is Aubyn, and together with my partner Tristan, I manage Spray Creek Ranch just outside of Lillooet, BC. We raise chickens, hogs, turkeys, sheep, and cattle outdoors on pasture and direct market meats to customers throughout the Sea to Sky region. Here we are rotationally grazing hogs in an area we call our old Homestead Orchard. There's lots of old apple trees, apricot trees, cherries, pine, Douglas fir, and lots of nice forage. So we like to raise the hogs someplace where it doesn't matter if they're creating lots of disturbance to the soil. So we don't like to raise them in our flat hay fields where they're gonna really root around and cause some issues for machinery. So here's a nice spot. So then we can just overseed lightly after the pigs are done and the area's rehab really nicely. So here we've got a batch of about 40 weaner pigs that just arrived a few days ago, and this is their first paddock in the orchard. They will be here for probably a couple weeks. Once they've eaten most of the forage, done a bit of rooting, then we'll just move them along. All of our infrastructure is portable, so we've got this nice electronetting, which is easily movable, a house on skids and a mobile feeder, and water attached to the house. So we try and make it since our whole farm is based on keeping the animals moving using rotational grazing practices, we try and make that as easy for ourselves as possible using mobile infrastructure. The benefit of electric netting is that it provides not only a psychological barrier, but also a physical barrier to the animals getting in or out. So with electric fencing, if you're just using a single or double line to hold hogs in, that's totally possible. But what you're relying on is the pigs not wanting to get the feeling of the electric shock. This also physically holds them back. So this is great for smaller pigs, for pigs that are naive to electric fencing, to train them what that feels like and what that looks like. And it's also really convenient. You can take it down and set it up easily. Some of the cons to using the netting is that it can ground out easily. So a lot of folks, when they set up electric netting, they will weed eat along the edge. We really don't like to do that because it's time and fuel. So often we will graze an area very lightly with cattle or sheep and then set up the netting to hold in hogs or chickens. Another trick to that, to prevent it from grounding out and really losing a lot of your voltage on the fence, is snipping the bottom two wires. This fence is off so I can touch it. The very bottom wire when you get the electric netting is not electrified, but other than that, all of these horizontal wires are electrified. We find that it keeps the animals in just fine if you snip the bottom two wires and then it doesn't ground out as bad. This is the shade structure that we use for them. We started using these pavilions for our chickens several years ago and have gradually started buying more and using them for all of our animals. So we have larger ones we raise our poultry in, and then we have smaller ones that we use for shade structures for our hogs and our sheep, and actually we've added them to our laying hen setup as well, just to provide a little bit more shade from the Lillooet sun. So we've got them on metal skids, which are open in the back and go across the front. So they're really easy to pull with on flat ground. You can even pull the smaller ones with an ATV. If it's hilly or you are using larger structures, then you need a tractor to pull it. But it's really easy to pull and it can go over fairly hilly terrain. And on this one, our hog structure, we've also got some nipple drinkers attached to it. So that's nice because that's just one less individual thing we need to move when we're moving our animals frequently, so that the housing and the waters are connected. And so all we have to do when we're moving them to the next paddock is open up the fence, hook it up to the tractor, move it ahead and connect it to the nearest water line. So when you're designing your rotational grazing system for your animals, you have to think about making your fencing portable, but also all of the necessary infrastructure. So their housing, their water, their mineral, and their feed. We have tried lots of different systems for mobily feeding pigs. Having a trough and the tote of feed parked outside of the netting and just bucketing it in works totally fine when you are running, 2, 3, 10, 15, maybe 20 hogs. But when you're running 40 hogs at a time, it's just a lot of bucket scooping and your shoulders get pretty sore, especially by the time they're harvest ready. So we tried to think of another solution. This is our mobile hog feeder. It's got some pros and cons. It's nice because it holds a whole tote of feed. So you only have to fill it every so often as soon as they run through a whole ton. And it's got a kind of small outlet at the bottom so that they don't waste a ton of feed. The cons are that it does get wet, the feed gets kind of stuck in there, and it's a little bit, you have to have the machinery needed to be able to get the feed all the way to this high top. But like I said, we did use troughs, just troughs we had kind of some half pipes that were nice solid to the ground. We'd have them inside the paddock, then we had the feed outside the paddock and would just scoop up the feed and put them in the troughs 2 times a day, and that worked fine for many, many years. One thing you need to think about with your feeding infrastructure is that the traffic around the feeder is going to be much higher than the rest of the paddock. So the rest of your paddock might still look great. You've got another week or 2 for the animals to be in that area, but the area around the feeder or the water, especially if you live in a wet area, could get really mucky. So that is one good use case for smaller troughs or more mobile feeding equipment, so that even daily or every couple days you can drag those troughs around to a new area in the paddock to really spread that impact, so that you're not seeing kind of a trashed area in one section of the paddock where the rest of it still looks nice. That's one drawback to having larger equipment like this. We really need to find a flat area for it, so it's harder to move around within the paddock. So you want to kind of, in that case, make the paddock small enough that by the time the area around the feeder is done and needs to be left alone, you're ready to move to the next area, or you have enough spots in your paddock where you can keep the feeder moving.